On today's episode, I've titled today's episode "For All Have Sinned," and in the previous episode, like we said, we talked about the historical context in which this letter was written. We talked a bit about the author of the letter, who is Apostle Paul, and we mentioned that he wrote the letter to the Christian community in the city of Rome. You see, like I said in the last video, that it is already a daunting challenge trying to explain this letter because of its long history. But that's not just the only reason why it's a daunting challenge for me. You see, the book of Romans addresses key themes in Christianity or the gospel, which though they were not intentional, but along the way, Apostle Paul touched on some very important areas of Christianity that in the past, well-meaning teachers, theologians, and pastors, they've misrepresented, they've argued over them, and they've even disagreed on its meaning and application. So you can imagine the type of challenge I'm taking on trying to explain to you this letter in just few days and then using just few videos. But while I don't think I have new ideas or revelation about this book than any other previous teachers, I'm also quite confident in the fact that the Holy Spirit has helped me to understand this book of Romans to some extent that can at least allow me help you or help someone who maybe you've read the book before and then you had to stop midway because it felt like it was a bit confusing or you couldn't really make sense of it. So I believe the Holy Spirit has to helped me to understand the book that now has put me in a position that I can help another person get started. And I don't think that is little or that is insignificant. I think that's quite major. I'm proud of it and I'm grateful to God for the opportunity. So if you've read the book of Romans before and you struggle to understand it, I would recommend this video because I would try and make it as simple as possible, and I hope it blesses you. So that's enough about from in terms of introduction. Let's get into it. You see, to understand this letter, we definitely have to start from chapter 1. And I don't just mean that in the obvious sense, since it is the first chapter, but because Romans chapter 1 is as a microcosm. You see, it provides a background but also encapsulates the key theme that is central to the whole story, and one of it is righteousness by faith. You see, between verse 17 of Romans chapter 1 to the end of Romans chapter 3, Apostle Paul rests his discourse on the fact that God is righteous, and it is in his righteousness that he reckons the whole world as righteous only by faith. You see, this is because everybody has sinned. Everyone has sinned. Even the Jews, the Israelites, the people, the lineage of Abraham, the ones who had the law, Moses, Joshua, all have sinned. And then the other part refers to those who do not have the law, popularly referred to as Gentiles. If you read Romans chapter 1 to verse chapter 3, if you've read it before and you're wondering what's all this about, I've just summarized it to you that Apostle Paul was emphasizing that God is righteous, and his definition of righteousness is that righteousness is by faith. And the only way you can have the God kind of righteousness is by faith. And why is this so? Why is it just by faith again? Apostle Paul then further explains to us that it's because every one of us have sinned. Meaning, even if you were to do something, we have already failed on that aspect. The person that had the law to tell him what to do and not to do, he has sinned. The one that did not have the law has sinned. So my Romans chapter 1, chapter 3, just that's the summary of it. And you see, there's a lot to learn from narrowing in on how each of these groups have sinned, as detailed in Romans chapter 1, how they will be judged, like you've seen in Romans chapter 1 as well. And hopefully, before the end of this series, I should address some of those other important points you can see between Romans chapter 1 to Romans chapter 3. But like I said, the summary of it all is the fact that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And this is what you should have in mind while you try to understand this letter from Romans chapter 1 to chapter 3. That basically, Apostle Paul, the person who wrote this letter, was saying to his audience, that's something they would have understood. All have sinned. What this person is writing to me, the point he's communicating to me in this first part of his letter is, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And to be righteous before God, it has to be by faith. Romans chapter 1 verse 17. And that's just like the summary of Romans chapter 1 to chapter 3. You see, as a bonus point on today's episode, I want you to have this at the back of your mind every time you read the book of Romans. The fact that Romans was written to believers, Romans was written to Christians. Why is this important? It's important because you need to know that Romans was not, the letter was not written as a way to evangelize sinners. It was written to people who were already Christians. And if you have this at the back of your mind, it helps you to take very seriously everything you find there. You don't psychologically just exonerate yourself or remove yourself from the instructions it gives as regards to sin, as regards to what you should do or what you should not do. And then you conveniently insert yourself in the places that make you look good, like Romans chapter 8. No, it was written to believers. It was not written to sinners. As much as you can find lessons, like I said, that focuses on what we've done wrong, and it could be a very good way to evangelize people who are sinners. It was written to believers. That's very important, and as we go on in this series, it will make more sense. So that's the bonus point of this episode. I hope that helped. I hope when you read Romans chapter 1 to chapter 3, it would, as you read it, as you go through the text, you get the picture that, oh, okay, I think what this man was trying to say was, he was saying to his reader is the fact that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and righteousness is by faith. I'm going to see you on the next episode, episode 3, as we continue to explore the book of Romans. Bye.